Hello everyone, this is CounterYolo bringing you another video talking about Star Trek Online. And after thinking about this Discovery expansion for a while, I decided to compile my thoughts today to talk about how I view the Discovery expansion thus far inside of the game. So I'm going to be first reviewing, for the majority of this video, what we probably should expect in an expansion inside the game versus just regular seasons. And then I will conclude with whether we actually have a Discovery expansion thus far with our 3 seasons of Discovery thus far. Feel free to see the time links in the video. There's going to be more than just those 2 points in it. So let's go ahead and get started. So first off, just as an FYI to you all, I did make a recent video about last week on the Facebook page talking about the various types of players inside of Star Trek Online. Feel free to check that out if you so choose. It is a really good video, and a lot of you that watch this channel are probably going to like that video as well. Now, when it comes to this expansion that we've had thus far, we have had what Cryptic has called 3 seasons, and those are the rough dates that those different seasons have come out. However, Cryptic has been a little bit vague on what they have been considering seasons in Star Trek Online versus mid-season updates and those different types of things inside the game. So I decided it was time that we go ahead and kind of review that a little bit more closely inside of the game. Now, technically, including Discovery, we have had 5 expansions inside the game, at least since the free-to-play era has come out. We've had Legacy of Romulus, Delta Rising, Agents of Yesterday, Victory is Life, and then our Discovery expansion that is currently going. As you can see, that means that we've had, like 5 of the past 7 years technically having an expansion. So technically in 2015 and 2017 we technically didn't have a real expansion, but I personally feel that the Iconium War did really fill that role pretty well. And then the Lucari and Zakethi arc of 2017, which was an arc that was supposed to lead up to Victory's Life, I still feel also kind of filled that role pretty well. We'll be looking at the stuff inside of what all those actually did inside of it. As you can see here in terms of the rough timeline in the past like 6 years, and we have also a little bit of our current year and of the 7th year, at least since the rough time of when this game went free to play. As you can see here, the main pattern has typically been we've had an expansion or season, and then you had an update, then you had the next one. The exception being that the beginning of 3 of the 4 years where we had an expansion, that first quarter of that year we didn't have anything really significant going on. Or you could kind of view it as they kind of had 2 quarters back to back for a mid-season update to prep for that next expansion. The one exception to that would technically be Delta Rising, which we'll probably talk about a little bit later as to why that might be the case. I've never worked at Cryptic. I haven't talked to any of the people at Cryptic one-on-one or in person. It's just more of what I've been perusing on the internet. So a lot of what I'm going to surmise in this video is going to be more conjecture based versus some of my other videos on this channel. Now, for my comparison, especially when I talk about starships for these various seasons and expansions, I'm not going to include low-buy ships, lockbox ships, promotion pack ships, nor event and Phoenix pack starships. This is because, at least in the past couple of years, Cryptic has been extremely consistent on how they've been releasing those different ships inside the game. Basically to the point that it doesn't matter what the season is, what the expansion is, they're very consistent about releasing those because a lot of their money comes from these sources. And so of course I want to keep that as reliable as possible, to keep the revenue stream coming in as reliably as possible. So in comparing these, I don't really feel that it would be quite fair to really say, oh yeah, well, during this expansion versus this season we had different things, when, well, it was just because that's a particular time of the year, and during that time of the year you have different things going on. And so I'm removing these factors to keep it more fair between them. Now, when we talk about the first 3 kind of expansions, Legacy of Romulus, as you can see here, there wasn't, any level thing or something like that. There were a couple of big things going on though. We still got 19 starships. I mean, this is before the Delta Rising stuff, so these weren't tier 6 starships. We got 2 new species plus liberated Borg Romulan, which is just Romulan with some Borg skin stuff on it, and then the stats of the other Borg species. But the big thing was we got a bazillion missions. We got 23 Romulan specific missions, 5 new cross-faction missions, and they also revamped a mission arc, which was huge. I mean, in just 1 quarter, they released all of that content. It definitely makes sense as to why Cryptic wouldn't ever do that again. Plus the fact that you had to make a brand new faction with their own sets of starships that weren't accessible to anyone. It's definitely a lot of work. Not to mention, alongside this, they also added warp and singularity cores to the game. Before this point, technically they existed, but they weren't like a slot that you could put in and upgrade. It was something that they added with Legacy of Romulus to give Romulan ships. Well, the big thing was to give Romulan ships like an additional feel of difference between them versus the other ships inside the game. Persona Station also got an interior visual overhaul, which is an upgrade versus what they had previously. It hasn't aged that well to today, but it's still decent looking versus a lot of the rest of STO, especially when you go to the various planets and go planet side. With Delta Rising, I'm also for this particular expansion, I'm also including the mid-season update because there are some significant things in that too. So this is technically 2 quarters or 6 months of stuff in the game versus like this one's just 3 months. This one's also just three months as well. Actually, no, to tell you that this one's also 6 months. But anyway, Delta Rising gave us the level 60 cap increase with Tier 5U and Tier 6 starships. It gave us 18 new starships, 9 of which were Fleet, and 9 of which were C-Store. The Romulan Republic one over here, in contrast, had 11 that were exclusively C-Store, plus 4 that were C-Store with 4 more Fleet variants alongside it. The level 60 cap gave us Starship Mastery for all Tier 5 and U and Tier 6 starships, as well as the Admiralty system at level like 53 or 54, something around there. The Delta Alliance reputation was also added at this point, and we got 13 new cross-faction missions as well as 2 TFOs. They also added the sector space revamp during this time as well, just so that those people trying to do a tour of the galaxy could actually do it more reliably to get their more reliable amount of dilithium per day per character, and they wouldn't have to hope that the RNG wasn't bad in the priority of loading up the next map. Instead of there's maybe 3 maps, well now 4 maps for potentially for tour of the galaxy if you have to have a super good starship for transitions versus a bazillion of tiny little map movements inside of each main quadrant. They also added the intel and command specializations, and they also added a lot of really nice quality of life improvements to bridge officer training. Before this, with bridge officer training, you first train a bridge officer in an ability, and then you had to upgrade their effectiveness on that ability to its maximum effect so that it would be more effective and that its cooldown would be reduced as well. With the change, especially because people are going to have intel and command specializations, and that was going to be a pain retraining different abilities. They basically changed it so once you train a bridge officer in an ability, they would keep it, and that you wouldn't have to upgrade them up to the maximum level. It would just be automatically upgraded already to that level already, so you wouldn't have to worry about that anymore. Additionally, it was during Delta Rising they also got the secondary deflectors. Prior to Delta Rising, science ships didn't have a secondary deflector. All of them just had 6 weapons, and they had their commander science ability, which was totally fine. It was totally viable. With this change, most science ships, with a few exceptions, including science carriers, were able to get the secondary deflectors added to them. Additionally, the Voyager got an interior visual overhaul as well. The Iconium War was Season 10. Big things for it was that we gained the Armada system, so that you could have multiple fleets working together for projects and things, especially for fleets that already had their stuff maxed but needed fleet marks. This is a good way to help solve that. We got 16 new starships, 8 starships that had fleet variants, as well as the pilot specialization and a new reputation, with 8 cross-faction missions and 3 TFOs. We also got a fleet research lab, which adjusted some of the trait things that they were changing, as well as adding nice science consoles for science captains and command and bridge officers for those that weren't already using the Octobat cooldown method inside the game. For our other expansions inside the game, we have Agents of Yesterday, as well as the mid-season update for Agents of Yesterday. It gave us the TOS Federation faction, which gave that faction 6 TOS only missions, as well as 6 cross-faction missions and 3 TFOs. It also allowed the Badlands Battle to also give them marks, even though the Badlands Battle was added in a season in between part of the Iconian and Agents of Yesterday. There's some stuff around there as well that when Badlands was actually added. You also got the Temporal Outer Specialization, which helped science a lot, Temporal Defense, which also helped science a lot, and the K-13 Fleet Halting, which allowed for a lot of your trades to have superior versions as well. Including this, we also, the things that I consider really nice to have from K-13 is the ensign level mortar ability. There's the photon mortar at ensign level that you can only really get through K-13, or if you're a TOS captain and buy the quantum mortar training manual from the TOS Federation starbase, then you can get the training manuals without having to have a K-13. Otherwise you do. Additionally, the Xenotech engineering consoles were also really good. Especially, in the time before there was tons of clicky consoles inside the game, Xenotech consoles were extremely good for survival and healing inside the game. After TOS Federation, we had a big long time of about a year, which was leading up to Victory's Life. During this time, we had 3 seasons, just like Discovery, in which we got 2 reputations, 2 specializations, 1 full one and 1 partial one, 46 starships, including 27 that were C-Store exclusive, 9 that were C-Store with a fleet variant, and then the Fleet Lucari Scout ship, which is fleet exclusive without a C-Store variant, which means that particular fleet starship actually has its own trait and console with it. It is a very nice starship, just to throw that out there. Especially with all of this, because in those 3 seasons, we got 8 cross-faction missions, 7 TFOs, and a battle zone, plus a fleet colony and a visual overhaul of the Galaxy class. There was a lot of stuff that happened in 2017 for this whole big arc. There was a lot that happened. Victory's Life was just in one patch. They also added some additional things afterwards for just a couple more ships, but most of the stuff was added just at the beginning with Victory's Life. We got a new level cap, 14 new starships in total, 10 that were C-Store exclusive, and then 2 that had a fleet variant. In my opinion, being able to have lots of more of them that are C-Store exclusive really means that typically whenever a starship is from the C-Store but is C-Store exclusive, it means that you get the endgame stats capable and full capability of that starship right from the get-go. If it's from the C-Store but it has a fleet variant, it means that if you really want the trait and the ability to fly the ship at its best capability for it, you have to buy it from the C-Store and then use fleet modules to buy it again from the fleet. So you basically have to buy the ship twice, which is kind of unfortunate. However, if you don't care about traits, then fleet starships is nice, because then with the stuff in the Discovery thing that we'll talk about in a bit, it allows you to be able to get fleet starships much easier and potentially able to get 2 tier 6 versions without paying any money in the game whatsoever. Also, for usability purposes, Dominion stuff added the fact that Dominion and Romulan captains could fly their allied starships. Romulan captains had some usability stuff that was reduced on them, while Dominion captains literally have the same capability as their Klingon or Federation allies, depending upon which faction that they allied with. Essentially, your Dominion captain basically became a level 60 Federation or Klingon captain after the tutorial, just depending upon which faction that you allied with. They're able to access every single ship inside the game for that particular faction. Additionally, you got 3 new species, a new reputation, and some really high quality missions. Unfortunately, just one TFO and a battle zone, which was a little lackluster in my opinion, but it was still nice nonetheless. Plus, we got a really high quality Deep Space Nine overhaul and the Gemini Wingman mechanic for our couple of Gemini Vanguard ships that we got inside the game. Now, for our Discovery stuff, what we've gotten thus far is 14 starships, 7 that all have fleet variants. None of them are endgame capable straight from the C store, unfortunately. We have the new Discovery Legends rotation as of this last week. And for new mission stuff, they added the mission tutorial streamlining, which I didn't like, but some people do. And we got a tutorial plus 6 cross-faction missions, because all the Discovery missions can be accessible by anyone inside the game, not just Discovery captains. Plus, we've gotten 4 TFOs thus far. Plus, on the Battle of Binary Stars alongside that, as a feature TFO that won't be in the regular TFO system. The big things that they added in terms of overhaul things inside the game was the Personal Endeavor system, which is basically just the old reputation system for adding lots of extra stats to your ships, but they're probably not going to tell you that. We've gone tier 6 reputations with it, scalable tier 6 starships, allowing for most tier 6 starships outside of most of the fleet tier 6 starships to be able to be used after the tutorials. I'm not sure if that was an oversight or if they just didn't have enough time to do all of that. Additionally, they added the tier 6 coupon token system because, as our executive producer noted in a live stream like a couple months ago, I think at this point, the point of that was so that eventually they could expand this so that eventually players can just gift tier 6 starships basically to other players inside the game. And having tier 6 starships available at any level means that they can gift those starships to any player in the game, irrespective of their level, and they'll be able to immediately use them and start using that starship wherever they are at inside the game. Which makes the gifting system that they'll eventually be adding to the game much more usable and easy to make money off of. When it comes down to it, for the patterns themselves, during non-expansion years outside of our Delta Rising one, we typically have 4 main patches, one main patch or kind of season per each quarter. In the 3-month periods of like January to March, April to June, July to September, and October to December. During expansion years, with the exception of one, we have typically missed the quarter 1 patch to basically have our expansion basically worth 2 patches, or if you have the expansion plus a mid-season update, that's basically 3 patches, or 3 quarters worth of content inside of all of that. So when it comes down to it, since Discovery is also 3 quarters or 3 seasons right now, do we really have an expansion right now? And to be honest, I would say kind of. Now for the S, we have a lot of the usability composite changes that Cryptic has added to the game, as I've previously mentioned. Additionally, if you squint and just look at Sea Storm Fleet stuff and the missions, it is kind of close to the ballpark. It is at the low end and lower than the other expansions that we've previously gotten inside the game, but it's not super far off. The big downsides come to these problems. The story is split in 2 unconnected arcs at the moment. We have the CounterYolo arc, which is in the the Discovery era of like the 2270s, and then we have the Meritili arc, which is in modern STO. And she is still kicking around right now, so apparently she's supposed to come back. I mean, sure, CounterYolo is technically also in our time, but we've only ever interacted with her in the Discovery time inside of the game, or through simulations from the ship that got launched into the future with your Discovery captain. That's where the stuff comes from. But I mean, like right now, the only way that they kind of connect at all would be if you played them all as a Discovery captain. Then it'd be you as the captain that's actually physically connecting them all together, which would be really stupid on Daniel's part to have you go and interact with Meritili. But in a different video, I'll probably talk about why that's really stupid. Additionally, outside of the story problems, We haven't gotten any Mega Bundle since the start of the expansion. If you recall, as we showed in this last slide here, in Season 12 to 14, we got 46 starships because we got several Mega Bundles inside of this time frame of a year. And we're approaching close to a year at this point for Discovery, and we haven't gotten any Mega Bundle whatsoever. Now, it could be argued that the Discovery Expansion Bundle was kind of supposed to be that. I mean, it was definitely priced in the range for a Mega Bundle, and a lot of us in the game immediately said no. We're like, this is way overpriced. We have no idea why you're wanting it that high. I mean, true, yes, if you valued everything in the bundle, it was still kind of worth it. However, when it comes down to it, and whenever you look at a bundle and you realize the only things that are actually exclusive to it is a skin for a Lobi starship, I don't know, it's not really as impressive, to be honest. I mean, do I fly some of the starships from that Discovery Expansion bundle? Yeah. The the Miracle Worker battle cruisers from it are really great, and the traits from the, what are they called? From the pilot Raptors, or the pilot bird of prey and the pilot light escort. The trait was way better than I thought it was going to be. It interacts in a much less severe way than I thought it was going to be inside the game, which makes it a really good trait. But I mean, really outside of that, I mean, you might as well just get the fleet version and just fly it instead. And additionally, the last problem, as I kind of pointed out already with this second point, we've already had a 3-season content drop from Cryptic before, in between real expansions, with the Lucari/Zinkethi arc. And I mean, sure, not a lot of those things connected, but we still got a lot of stuff during that time. For our Discovery 3 season, we've only gotten 14 starships from the Sea Star/Fleet. With the Lucari/Zinkethi arc, we got 46 starships during seasons 12 to season 14. Additionally, during that time, or at least for Discovery, we haven't gotten a single mission weapon set during this entire time. And this is what this is also one of the things that's kind of pushed me a little bit away from the game at the moment, is why is it that the only weapon set we have gotten basically literally since Victoria's life is from the Discovery Legends reputation 3 seasons later. Well, 3 seasons plus a mid-season update later. I mean, it just seems really weird that Cryptic is being really hesitant to give us more mission weapon sets inside the game. I mean, it was super cool if they finally added, a 3-piece weapon set that gave us a set omnidirectional plasma beam array. They really should. They also should be adding much more sets like what they're adding right now, that give us more set options for dual beam bank builds as well as for single cannon builds. Yeah, neither of those are meta inside the game, but they have their uses inside the game. They both do. Just that it's very easy to use one of the other ones right now for DPS, just because there's not very many dual beam banks inside the game that are power sets, and single cannons are mainly only used in PvP whenever you're an escort fighting against escorts. That's mainly when single cannons are actually used inside the game. Otherwise, you use dual heavy cannons instead, in basically all other cases. So, for real TLDR, what do I think about the Discovery expansion? I personally feel, I'm giving myself a little bit of benefit for Cryptic by saying this, is that I feel like Cryptic is kind of being torn in 2 different directions, trying to make 2 different story expansions at the exact same time, making both of the stories feel really shallow and really straining a lot of their development time so that they aren't able to give us as many starships as what we would typically expect. At the same time, because of that, we aren't able to get a lot of like the weapon sets we would normally expect in the same type of time frame. That is my assumption. it's definitely possible that the current EP could be just saying, don't release as many of those things because that just doesn't make money. It's also definitely a valid point there too. Some of the prices looks like they're starting to go up from the C store. They haven't decreased the prices of the non-tier 6 starters from the C store like they said they were thinking about doing. I guess we'll just see in time what Cryptic actually decides to do. Anyway, hopefully this video was interesting to you all. In just a couple of days, I'm going to have a much more statty type of video that is less of opinion based. That will hopefully be of more interest to more of you. But I definitely felt that this video was important to put out, especially in light of the recent season that we just received. Again, I haven't tried out any of the new stuff in the Discovery reputation, so I can't really give a review on those yet. Once I get my stuff to tier 5, then I'll be able to start talking about that much more inside the game. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.